Hi Karina. Right, what I want to do is just show you a little bit about HPC Comments, which is the plugin. Basically what these allow HPCs to do, you may recall from the training that ECE submissions go in two phases. They're reviewed by the HPC and then they're referred to the assessor. Now, what this plugin allows them to do is to add comments to those submissions and to have those comments be sent to the organisation. So very typically, an HPC will look at a submission and they will say something like, well done, or you might want to put a little bit more in here. The important point here is that the organisation's already submitted, so their options for adding stuff are fairly limited, but in that event, I mean, that's an exception we don't need to worry about here, but typically it will be comments like, well done, keep up the good work, and so forth. This refers to ECEs only. In order to test, we'll need a test ECE set with a test email address. We'll need to know the HPC for that ECE, and it's useful to have their email address too. This should not send an email to the HPC, by the way. I have had reports that HPCs are receiving them, which is puzzling since it's nowhere in the code, but I guess as a matter of good practice we should have the HPC's email address there as well. Okay, now that ECE will need to have a test submission. So there will need to be submitted evidence for that ECE. Now you can submit that yourself, or you can do what I'm about to show you, which is probably the easiest way of testing this. Let's come out here. So I'm in staging at the moment, and I'm going to log in as an admin. And I'll hop in here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick one of the HPCs that has quite a few organisations, and people like Beck, Chloe, Anne's got quite a few, so let's pick, I'll pick Chloe here for instance, Chloe Balderstone. So I will click on there and I will log in as, and it will log me in as that person. So I'm now logged in as Chloe. I go to the HPC homepage, and if I am lucky, I should have, and yes, I've got a couple down below, maybe a bad choice there, but I've got a couple of ungraded assignments down there. I should say, there's probably, I've not actually checked it, but this should work on the blue ones as well as the red ones. I don't see any reason why it shouldn't, so you can try, you can check it with those. It's just not defined for that circumstance. But in any case, we've got Arthur Childcare here. These are evidence submissions, so that saves us from loading them up if there are ones already there. So what we would then need to do is go and check this organisation here and make sure that they had the email address, the test email address that we were going to use. Now, I would say the quickest way of doing that is actually just to click in here, and you should be able to change both the organisational and the contact email addresses just here, and I would say that's the quickest way of doing it. So set those to the Heart School ones. I won't save that, but when you've done that, if you then go as if to review this assessment here, and you will see HPC comment to ECE there, and if you just tap a comment here, when you save that page, you should find that that triggers an email to that organisation's, at the moment the organisation email address, presumably the contact email address is what we want, that triggers an email to that organisation with those comments in it, and that is how you test it. Now if you run out of, as we can see Chloe's a bit shorter red ones here, but if you run out of them, as I say, I don't see any reason why it wouldn't work with the blue ones as well. So you can use the blue ones, and you can reuse them as well. We're not changing the status of these submissions, so you can just keep adding more comments. And that should just trigger another email. There's no reason why it wouldn't do that. So that is how to test it. Next step, where do we install the code? The code is, and I'll show you where it is in the folder structure, it is under the Moodle folder, mod, assign, submission, HF comments. So you just copy the plugin into that location and it should upgrade or install correctly. So just letting you know where that is. So that's all good. Now just to recap a couple of things I mentioned earlier. There's a few things in here you don't need to worry about. This is a very small plugin. It's a lot smaller than the one you've been working with. And it's a particular type of plugin. Because it's a comment plugin, it actually uses something called Ajax to, without going into too much detail, it allows the web page to call back into the code and get some information. Don't need to worry about that. What you need to worry about here is that the business end of this is this function here, assign submission HF comment add. This should be called every time someone puts a comment in. And very broadly what it does is it goes and gets the email address, the details of the to user here on my line 202, it'll be roughly the same in the copy I've sent you, and then it runs the send notification here. So I believe that all we need to do is tweak this. This is an object. This object here is an object. I believe that all we need to do is tweak the email address on this object before we pass it into these routines here in order to get it to work. But I will leave that to you and wish you good luck.